Hi, everybody. All right. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, yeah.
The three of us, we put this together. I'm going to go ahead and let Jim start and introduce himself.
I'm Jim Lockridge. I direct Big Heavy World, which is a volunteer-run music office. So if you're a musician and you haven't connected with Big Heavy World yet, we'd love to make an introduction. We operate a little radio station, an archive of Vermont made music, and it's all volunteer-run. So everybody's welcome to jump in if you like supporting local music. Also, if you happen to be a musician, go to bigheavyworld.com soon and take the economic sector survey that's there for the music industry. We're collecting data from across Vermont that a consultant's going to help us turn into what might be priorities for legislators and policymakers and strategists on behalf of the music industry. But thank you all for being here, and it's a pleasure to meet you.
Hi everyone, my name is Hannah Satterley. I'm the founder and director of the Vermont Dance Alliance, which is a new nonprofit organization serving the dance culture of Vermont statewide. So we don't have a hub, we partner with venues and theaters throughout the state and try to reach new audiences through our membership system. So we have a group of about 100 right now, dancers and service organizations that relate to dance, that work together on projects and events, and we partner with other people. So it's growing, it's small, and we love anybody's input. It's very much an active participation effort. So if you or anyone you know is a dancer or interested in collaborating with dance artists, feel free to join or check us out. And our website is vermontdance.org.
And I'm Dominic Spillane, and I'm developing TheaterEngine, which is an online platform for the performing arts. It's meant to make it easier to find the performing arts events that are happening near you and the artists. We're still beta testing and developing, but we do have shows up there now, so please check it out. But we have been talking and thinking about how there are many resources out there for artists, but it's not always easy to find them or to know that they exist. And so this is a bit of an experiment to see if we can get all these different people in a room, people from different artistic sectors, and connect them with knowledgeable people who know how to make a business out of the things that we're doing. And if all goes well, we'll try to keep doing stuff like this. So great, thank you so much for being here.
As this wraps up tonight, close to 8 o'clock, have it in mind that if you'd like to carry on casual conversation with our peers here, just around the corner is a space called the Whiskey Room. And it's a cozy place for anybody 21 plus to come hang out with us. For a pint of Guinness or what have you.
All right, we're going to turn it over to Kylie Halpin and Andy Butterfield. Kylie is the Director of Digital Marketing at HARC, which is a web development and digital marketing service here in Burlington. And Andy is the Director of Marketing Communications at Weston Playhouse.
Great. Thank you guys so much for coming out. Thank you for braving the Vermont winter, which is already here. Still haven't accepted it, but. So I wanted to give everybody a very, very broad level of introduction to what digital marketing is. It's kind of more of a bird's eye view, and then once we get to Andy's portion, he's going to be talking about very industry-specific tactics. So this is just to give you a sense of what the components of digital marketing are, what they mean for your business, why they're important, and how and when to use them. So again, I work with a digital marketing agency. We're located right on College Street, and we have experience with all different size clients. Some of our clients have enormous budgets. Some of them have very conservative budgets. So it's a matter of understanding how best to use any money that you do have set aside for marketing, when to use it, how to leverage your assets in the best way. So that said, I'm going to jump right in here. So digital marketing basically refers to any efforts that are using any kind of electronics to leverage digital channels to reach your audience. So that's search engine marketing, that's social media, it's email, it's your website, it's your social media profiles. And so I'm just going to take us through what this, what I call the digital marketing trifecta is, and it's how these components work together in a digital marketing plan, and then why it's important. And then I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper to each of those three components, and I will give a little view into Google Analytics. I don't know how many people here have used it before, but it's just kind of going to be a general overview and where to find certain things, and that's specifically relating to when you have a professional website. So this may or may not be familiar to some people, but the three components of digital marketing are broken out as owned, earned, and paid media. Owned media is anything that you have a digital asset like a website, even your domain URL is technically your asset. Any profiles that you have online, Bandcamp, or any other kind of artist profile that lives out in the digital space is technically owned media. Earned media is your social community online. So that's your fan base. Those are the people who subscribe to your newsletter, who follow you on Facebook, and it's also just your general reputation in the community. Paid media is anything that you're spending money to gain more exposure. So pay-per-click campaigns, which are specific to digital advertising, any kind of promoted content that you're doing on the social media channels is paid media. And then, of course, print ads and commercials, which is more in the traditional sense, but it still shows up here as an important part of the marketing strategy. Oh, and side note, this sheet of paper here is for my portion. I'm sorry, there's a lot of stuff there, but I wanted to make sure that you guys could have something to take with you, and that way you don't have to feel like you have to absorb everything. So I tried to put as much as I could on this. The last part I'm not really going to get into, but it's a good thing just to have if you're ever dabbling in Google Analytics. And I'll get to that in a little bit. So I broke out these three categories into social media, website, paid advertising, which is simplifying them, but this is kind of the most tangible way to look at it at this point. So social media, of course, is building your community online. It allows you to cross-pollinate with other artists, with other organizations. It's a way to get your message out there to people who are already interested in what you have to say. And this is how you're engaging with this audience and giving value to them continuously. There's also lots of tools that come with Facebook, like event management. It makes it really easy to share events. And then, of course, share promoted events where you're putting money behind it. And then your website, again, this is owned media. This really is where you're showing your brand's legitimacy. You know, whether you're an artist or you're working for a gallery, you want anybody who searches for you to find your business. And beyond just having a Facebook page or an artist profile, it really takes that professionalism to the next level. It also allows you to be much more searchable. So if somebody is searching for art galleries in Burlington, they're going to see your business show up. And then, of course, there's different tools that you can use on a website, like events calendar. You can have a newsletter sign up. It just allows you to continue to give value to your business. And then really what you're doing is you're allowing your business to grow. So starting with a website is really important, in my opinion. And it doesn't have to be a fancy website. It can be a Squarespace, a Wix, anything. And commonly those platforms actually have a lot of technology built into them that are very user-friendly. So if you're not in a space where you can hire an agency or somebody to manage something like that, it really is something that's not as scary as it seems. And then you can really actually measure your growth and see the product of all of your work. Paid advertising, again, it's something that I say goal-oriented because you can set your goals ahead of time and then you can track your progress. So if you want to sell more event tickets, that can be your overarching goal, and it will basically drive all of your marketing efforts in that one direction. And this is, again, the purpose of this introduction is still very broad. I could see value in having a space dedicated entirely to paid advertising, because there's a lot to unpack there. So I'm going to start with our earned media, building your fan base. So this is having social media presence. A lot of people say, how often should you post? You know, what's too much, what's too little? There's not really a magic number, in my opinion. A lot of people agree 3 to 5 times a week is enough. It really depends on what the content is that you're sharing and how quality that content is. So if you don't have anything to post, it's not really necessary to continue to bug people. But if you have events, if you have interesting articles, shareable content, again, this is where you're going to engage with other people who might be in your industry, find new consumers, and of course you'll be driving this traffic back to your website ultimately as one of the overarching goals. Okay, so driving website traffic. This is a lot of the space that I work in particularly, and this is referring to Google and Google Analytics and how traffic is defined. So just having a website isn't really enough to drive people. What you have to keep in mind is, okay, so there's various types of traffic. Essentially, how people are landing on your website is boiled down to basically these categories here. Direct refers to somebody who types your URL in specifically or has a cached URL and maybe they visited it before. Organic search is a really important one. This is where people are searching for whatever your product is or your business, and then finding your website on a Google search engine results page. And that refers to, if anybody is familiar with the term SEO or search engine optimization. So this is something where there are SEO tools built in the back end of website platforms that will allow you to improve your organic search results. It's really important because it's a way to drive traffic without actually having to pay for it. Referral is another important one, especially if you're in an industry that's very community-based. This is where you have a link on somebody else's website and then their traffic is being driven to your website via that channel. So if you have a partner, TheaterEngine or whatever, and they're driving people who are on their website to your website, that's called referral traffic. And it's a good way, especially with the community online, to be able to build partnerships, to kind of trade, share your audience, and gain more exposure. Email is exactly what it sounds like. That's sending a newsletter with a link back to your website. Paid search, similar to organic, except you are paying to be in a result. So essentially, you're bidding on keywords in a pay-per-click campaign that are driving your audience or people that you're targeting to your website. So while you're paying for each of those clicks, you know exactly who you're driving to your website, and that's really where a lot of the strategy comes in. Social, anytime anybody reaches your website from anything shared on social, it doesn't have to be your platform, specifically your profile. It could be somebody sharing an article that you wrote, sharing your blog, and then their audience sees it, clicks on it, lands on your website, it's captured as social. And other is just anything else kind of beyond that, maybe with a campaign that was unlabeled. All right, Google Analytics is something that I use every day, and it can be a little bit intimidating, especially if someone is not used to seeing data like this, or maybe it doesn't use computers all the time. But it's really, really valuable, especially once you have a professional website, to keep tabs on your growth, to monitor your goals, and then you can actually see everything in one place, which I really like, because Google does a really good job talking to all of the other platforms as well that you might be using. Google it's a free marketing suite, so you don't have to pay to use it. The only thing you're paying for is if you're running paid advertising campaigns. So you can have all of this data completely at your fingertips at any time, and it's infinitely valuable, especially when you're starting out and you're really monitoring growth metrics. So I wanted to just quickly show you the Google Analytics dashboard. Dominic is kind enough to let me use TheaterEngine as my guinea pig. Thank you, by the way. So the important things that I just wanted to show when we're looking at Google Analytics is basically we want to keep an eye on both what users are doing when they get to your website and what pieces of your website are performing or not performing, and then also where people are coming from. So earlier when I was talking about different types of traffic, you can view all of this in your Google Analytics dashboard and see, oh, okay, I had 30% of my traffic was paid search, maybe, or so many people are coming from my social profile, and that's great. So this, again, is something that I could spend an entire afternoon talking about, but for the sake of this particular workshop, I just wanted to show a brief introduction and where you can find some of these metrics in your Google Analytics dashboard. So traffic, again, is broken out into various components. So we can see here, and I'm actually comparing a period against another period here. So you're seeing over a chunk of time whether your traffic has gone up or down and where maybe those changes are happening. So we've got paid search, which is top for TheaterEngine. That's great. That's very qualified traffic. Again, the downside is that you're paying for it, but the upside is that you're really kind of choosing who your audience is. Organic search, again, refers to, this is people who are just searching for something that's on your website. And they find your result, and boom, they land there. What's important about organic search is that there's a lot of data linked to it as well. Google Search Console allows you to actually see what queries people are typing in to find your result. So that's where you can start thinking about what keywords you're putting on your website. You're thinking about how optimized is my site for SEO. It's basically saying, here's how search engines are seeing the content on your website, and this is how effective it is at getting people to land on your site. So that's that, and again, you can see how they all kind of make up a percentage of the total overall traffic there. Another interesting part that you can dive as far into as you want to is your page activity and page performance. So which pages on your website are performing the best? And for the sake of simplifying, I'm going to not compare this to another time period, just so you can see one by itself. So this is an example, and TheaterEngine might not be the greatest example because their pages look like this, but basically this is where you're seeing, okay, all of my pages on my website have a certain amount of visitors every month, or however your time frame is. You can see how many new unique users there are, how much time they're spending on your page, your bounce rate, which is essentially how sticky is your website. When somebody lands on a page, are they immediately leaving, or are they spending some time navigating around to the other pages? So all of this kind of boils down to where am I at, how am I doing? And I think what's really important is not necessarily being a professional and understanding all the data right away, but having it in place so that over time you have a record. Once you start making decisions, you build your paid advertising campaigns, you build your SEO strategy, you have that monitor over time that you can see exactly where it takes your website. And this historical data is always available. So, and one thing that I was impressed with here is, I believe, yes, Dominic has set up affinity categories, which is great. So you can actually see what the people who are visiting your website are interested in. And this is, again, how you can formulate over time, who are you targeting, where are the people actually going who are on your site? What do they look like? What are their demographics? What are their interests? What are their locations? And this is really all the data that you would be using to then formulate your paid advertising campaign. All right, so in the interest of time, I don't want to continue. Again, this is something that I'm so happy to continue talking for ages about. So if you do have questions about it, please come up and talk to me afterwards. And there's so much to cover, really. But again, in the interest of this particular workshop, I just wanted to give a small introduction to it and really just demonstrate that all of this value is here for anybody. And you don't need to be an expert. There's a lot of data here, but there's also a lot of information available. Google does a really good job providing articles and editorials on how to use this data. And then again, you're setting yourself up for success when you're promoting your website over time. Right. And then my last bit was just basically, there's a lot of directions that these workshops can go. Again, I'm just scratching the surface with this, but there are so many other components that we can actually dive much deeper into. Paid advertising campaigns is very complex, but it's a really important part about a digital marketing campaign surrounding your business. How to use Google Analytics to set up conversions and goals. If you want to track, I ran a paid advertising campaign and it yielded this many event signups or registrations. So it allows you to sculpt what that goal looks like and what that journey is, and then track your progress over time. How to use social media for paid advertising. Facebook has a lot of really valuable tools available for anybody to use, and it's fairly user-friendly, and you can have as big or small of a budget as you want. And again, it's all driving toward those overarching goals of your business, and it's valuable to make use of. In my opinion, again, I've done a lot of Facebook advertising. It's not as complicated as it seems, and I would say just experiment. Use $10 of a budget for a week-long promotion and see where it goes, because that's also how you're going to gain insights about your audience, about what works and what doesn't work. And ultimately, you're not ever really wasting that money because it's going to drive people to your goal. And that's, again, why it's very important to have a goal in the first place. But I would just welcome anybody to taking a stab at it. And then, of course, optimizing your website for organic search. I mentioned this earlier. That's SEO. That's using the right keywords. It's speaking to your search engine so that they understand what's on your website so that people can land there without having to pay for those clicks necessarily. And then audience and keyword research is a whole other component in itself, where this is where you're ready to optimize your paid advertising campaigns. You want to learn about who your audience is. You want to learn about what keywords are going to yield results. And there's a lot that we can dig into here too. So this is just sort of a taste of what we can move into moving forward if we have the interest in it. There's a lot more to be said. Again, please come talk to me afterwards if you want to. And take your little cheat sheet with you. Hopefully it wasn't too scary. But yeah, that's it for me. Andy has a bit more industry-specific stuff to talk about, so I will pass the floor to him.
I don't think it'll be it for you though, Kylie, because some of the stuff I'm going to talk about, I'm going to flip back to you. I think based on how can we do some of these things based on some of the data that I'm going to present.
Perfect.
But before I do that, I just want to get a sense of who's in the room so I can speak specifically to the different industries that are in here. So raise your hand if you're representing the music industry. Okay, raise your hand if you're representing a venue, presenting house-ish, okay. Okay, theater, okay, music, we said music, theater, dance, have I not mentioned your industry? Public speaking, I guess that could also fall in this bucket. Yeah, okay, awesome. And I didn't actually when we started, I think only a handful of you had filled out that survey that we tried to do, just to give me sort of give us an understanding of where you are coming into this. I don't want to explain things you already know. So help me understand where you are on the scale of like 1 to on a social media scale, on a digital marketing scale of 1 being really shitty to 10 being I'm a maven. Where 1 to 3, raise your hand 1 to 3. Okay, and raise your hand. Nice. Raise your hand 4 to 6. All right, and 7 to 10. Nobody knows more. Okay. Now that said, I would never pretend to be an expert in this. I would say that Kylie knows far more about the inner workings of digital marketing than I do. I oversee a holistic omni-channel strategy, including print media, which is not dead. Don't kill print yet. You guys can read, so I'm not going to read things to you. Okay. So what I'm going to be sharing with you guys is a collection of data that I use all the time. It informs many of the decisions that I make. This is the most conclusive performing arts specific study that has been done. So it's reached 27,000 patrons at currently 58 organizations. This is an ongoing survey. It's going to continue to go forward, and the data will continue to come in. What's remarkable to me is it really mirrors the data that I'm collecting from my audience at the Weston Playhouse. So I think that, and I also do some consulting with Vermont Stage. So, and also you should know I'm coming, really from primarily a theater background when I approach this. But this survey is across music, dance, and theater, specifically, those 3 spaces. You guys read that? Okay, great. Oops.
Can you tell us the geographic area of the survey? Is it global or just North America?
This is North America. It's a North America survey. Oh yeah, and that's another good point, right? So it also includes, big presenting houses like the Flynn, smaller to medium houses like Higher Ground, and it includes, creative production houses like Weston Playhouse. It's a broad brush of data that we're looking at. But like I said, it really mirrors what I find. So here are some of the key findings, and I'm just going to stand because I've got restless leg syndrome. Just going for it. This thing's huge, right? So email is the primary source, right? Other than peer-to-peer marketing, like your friend saying down the street saying, "Hey, go see this awesome show that I saw," right? Email is the #1 way to reach people. So if you don't have an email strategy, create it. Does anybody have email marketing campaigns? Raise your hand if you have an email marketing campaign. Developing, perfect. So that has to be content rich. What does that mean? Anybody? Pictures, what else? Anecdotes, sure. Copy, video. I'm gonna get into video in a little bit. And video is king. And also, surprisingly, right, even though video is king, and we know that, if you get someone on Facebook or Instagram to watch the end of your video, you are a god. If you get someone to watch 9 seconds of your video, you're kicking ass. If you get someone to watch 3 seconds of your video, you can count that as someone that you have reached, okay? If you get someone to thumb by, that's an impression. So in your videos, and make them, just make them. It doesn't matter how, are you guys offended by it? It doesn't matter how shitty it is, just make it, because people will engage with it. And say what you gotta say in the first, yes, because people are gonna just phase out. Okay, this is my thing about print, right? Print media readership increases with age, but print readers, even over 65, are also active online. We're going to see some more data about that later. Facebook is also still king. We will also see that in the 35 and under bracket, that close behind that is Instagram and Snapchat. But you have to have a Facebook. And then, by the way, I should also say that what Kylie was saying about website, that is the linchpin of everything that you do. And you were talking, you had this actually, maybe you can talk about it, you talked about this like circle of death or something around the Facebook, around the website, right? All the, you know what I'm talking about? Like you drew out a little picture when we first met?
Yeah.
What do you call it?
trifecta.
Oh, that's what you meant, yeah, okay. But we were able to include all of the arms that come off of your website. Yeah, video. Oh, this is fascinating, right? And also know where you're putting your video. When people are on YouTube, they're there to consume video content. So they're much more likely to watch all the way through a YouTube video, right? On Facebook, they're only going to watch a few seconds. Like I said, maybe if you get to the end, like, amazing. And if you get 9 seconds, good on you. But YouTube, you're going to see people will stick around to the end. So customize your content based on the channels that you are putting it across. When people go to an arts website, the chief number one thing, 77% of people, patrons, what they're looking for is information about upcoming shows. The second thing that they're looking for is how to buy tickets. That's I think that's at like 74%. And then next, at 44%, the reason that people come to your website is for information, like how to get there. Click on the directions link, okay? You gotta have them. People are buying tickets online. Even people in the 70 plus age bracket, I've got some data showing up later, are doing it online. An impressive number. Okay, so this is a potential roadmap for what it might be to capture someone and own them as part of your digital property. So they start out as strangers, right? You want them to become friends, and then customers, and then you want them to be brand ambassadors. You want these people to drive the best kind of marketing that you can get, free marketing, which is peer-to-peer, right? And you want them to do that in an authentic way. Evangelists, you could also sort of put influencers under there, but that's sort of towing the line. Sometimes influencers are getting some sort of kickback for doing what they're doing. But the goal, to gain and maintain permission to contact your audience. How do you maintain a relationship with your audience? You got to continually serve them content. So when Kylie's talking about paid versus earned social media, once someone is a follower on your social page and you start posting, what you're doing is you're nurturing them. So those can be you're not necessarily, you don't have to make an ask of them. Those people are already following you. And the only people who are going to see those posts on your Facebook page are people who are following you. No one off that page is ever going to see them, right? So how do you reach the people off your page? You got to pay for it. And there are, like Kylie said, just spend $10. Experiment with how to target, and just try it. And then set up for yourself an A/B test. Spend $20. Spend $10 here doing this strategy, $10 here doing this strategy. See which one works better, and then pour fuel on the fire that works. There's another thing. Does anybody know what a lookalike audience is? Yeah. Okay. So you can take an email list. Let's say you have an email list, and you can. I haven't done this for a couple of years, but take an email list and you can sort of rank your ideal customers within that email list, and then you drop that email list into Facebook. Facebook will take it and then create a new target audience based on the demographics of the people on your email list. It'll go out and scrub for all of their data, and then you can target people who are like the people on your email list who are not currently following your Facebook page. So that's sort of a clever thing you can do. Then you gather the leads by getting their emails, social follows, and pixel browsers. And then once you have those things, and I'm not going to go to pixel browsers right now, it's deep. Deliver anticipated, relevant, and personal messages. How might it look? Read through it yourself. If you have questions, we can talk specifically about it. But this is a potential flow for how someone outside of your network might hook into your network and then eventually buy a ticket to your event and then tell their friends about it, and then their friends get hooked into your network. And that's just like how it might look. It's not like a formula. Okay, these are the demographics from the actual survey. So I believe that this, I know that this reflects the demographics from Western Playhouse, and I believe that it probably largely reflects the demographics in Vermont. You know, there are things like, fine, you know, you can tailor your content if you want to these things, but what I find fascinating are these two, age cohorts and attendance. And remember, these are 27,000 patrons across the U.S. and a range of performing arts organizations. And I have, maybe, do I have it? No, that's not it. Never mind. I thought I had a breakdown for how many music, how many theater, and how many dance. This is also fascinating to me, right? What can you expect of your audience in terms of showing up to one of your shows? Okay, you know, like people come to. Let's just poll in here. Let's see if we can come up with these same demographics. How many people are in here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 20. How many people see one show a year? How many people see 2 or 3? How many people see 4 or 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many people see, which is 25%? How many people see 6 to 10? Yeah, big chunk. 11 to 20? Starting to fade. How many people? Okay, we're getting ahead of myself. Okay, here are some insights that I find totally fascinating. Ticket buying behavior, right? 24-year-olds, surprise, surprise, are far less inclined to subscribe to an organization's events than they are to purchase individual tickets. What the survey has not been able to define yet is how that's going to trend as they get older. We just don't know that yet. You know, maybe. But ultimately, the goal, when we talk about sales funnels, you guys know what I'm talking about there, right? You bring someone in at this level, they buy 1 ticket to a show, and they're up here at the top of your funnel. The next season, you want them to come to 2 or 3 shows. Maybe the next year, you want them to come to, maybe the next year, you want them to subscribe. The next year, you want them to be an angel member, or a donor, or a producer circle member, or whatever you have. And then you want them, at the end of that funnel, to be in your legacy program, that when they die, they give you all your money. Right? Also not surprisingly, younger ticket buyers are much more likely to purchase via mobile. So what do? You invest in the user mobile experience. So when you build your Squarespace website, or your Wix, or Weebly, or whatever, make sure that, what's great about those sites is they do it's built in to optimize for mobile. So it's gonna look good. You build your own site on Squarespace. Who's built their own website? Yes! Nice work. And you can do it, right? Like, it takes some clicking around, some breaking things, but you figure it out. And that's the other thing. Just click and break. Click and break. It's fine. You'll make it better later. This is awesome. Among patrons over 65, 90% purchased tickets online in the last 12 months, and 53% are on Facebook. So don't underestimate that older audience. And the more that we move forward in time, the more what am I trying to say? The more we move forward in time, as people age out of going to events, we are a community now who everyone will be moving into that space. Email, overwhelming, so yeah, invest in your email, capture addresses, we talked about that. Facebook beats all other media channels except for television. 65% of all Facebook patrons use Facebook at least once a week. Right, and then we talked about this, Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat. So, strong social storytelling. Spend your budget targeting on social. Quick little anecdote. when I was listening to an NPR thing, maybe somebody else had heard this too. They were talking to one of the guys from Cambridge Analytica. Okay, so when the right-wing media was trying to push propaganda on the United States during the last election series, and Cambridge Analytica found that over lots and lots of tests, I'm sure a lot of money, they were able to diagnose that the single most affecting factor in the impact of their reach, impressions, and audience engagement for a social post is whether or not that male watched or liked Adam Sandler movies. So, that just happened to be this common factor. I shit you not, I heard that on an NPR interview with the Cambridge Analytica guy. That's not a joke. So, you can dive into the total guts of this stuff and like figure out exactly. And when you find that Adam Sandler is the trigger, pour the fuel on that fire, which is what they're doing. Media consumption. Print media consumption increases with age, obviously, but print readers are also active online. Don't stop using print. Just know when and where and how to do it, and spend your money wisely there. I think I used an example like people, still send a postcard. That's a nice thing to do. Has anybody used Canva? Anybody heard of Canva? One. If you haven't heard of Canva, get on it. It is the easiest way, and buy the upgrade. It's only $150. It's the easiest way to create high production value social posts. And there's a button that lets you just push the button. It's called resize. Push the button, and it resizes your original creation into a flyer, or into a postcard, or into an Instagram tile, or into a Facebook tile. It will do it for you. Believe me, just do it. Canva, C-A-N-V-A. 50% of patrons surveyed are under 34 and never reprint. See the future. Do more with less. Okay. Email, go for it. What else did I say here? Content. Lean into digital and support it with only the smartest investments. Yep. Blah, blah. Facebook. Oh, this is a video thing I was telling you about, right? So like 24%, what is it? 80% of all these patrons were on Facebook and Instagram watch videos at least weekly, and 24% watch daily. Again, video is king, right? 45% of patrons think more favorably about your brand after watching a video, and then 68 said they would be influenced to make a purchase by watching your video. There are also like pieces of software, I don't use any, but I don't know any of their names, but I know that there are software programs out there that you can, will create videos for you. I mean, Facebook will create, a carousel, a slideshow, like they have options. Moving pictures, also faces. When we see faces on social media, we're much more likely to click. Faces drive clicks, good. When it comes to money, cut it for an ad, create a video, promote it on social. Ticket buyers, so here's what we're talking about. 77% are seeking content about upcoming programs when they visit an arts organization website. Only 42% are there to get direction. So when you think about where you're spending your time and energy on your website, it's about the events that you're producing, right? The content around that, and not really, you have to tell them who you are and who your team is or whatever, but what they're really there for is to see what that content is. And then, website is the linchpin. It's the key to your entire digital marketing enterprise to develop rich content and compelling copy and make sure that mobile works. I think that's the end of my thing. But I wanted to ask Jim a question. Jim, when you first started, you were talking about a survey that you're doing?
Yes.
Will that information be made public?
Yes, all of it.
Okay, if you are in the music industry, do Jim's survey. Even if not, just everybody should do Jim's survey to help the guy out. But also, if you're in the music industry, connect with Jim to get that data, because that data is going to feed the things that you're doing going forward. So whoever my music people are. And then I also wanted to say, public having Let's see results. Oh yeah. Oh, anybody familiar with Google Grants? $10,000 for nonprofits. Who's with a nonprofit? Okay. Google Grants for nonprofits. Apply. Like, you're probably going to get it. $10,000 that they just set up for you so that you can figure out how Google Ads works. The other thing I would suggest is go to like AdWords online has an education program or something, and just go through and click through and teach yourself how to do it, because it will make all the difference in the world. That's what I do. That's the other thing I should say is, like, I'm not a maven. I have a Master of Fine Arts in acting. So I started as a performer, and then when I moved here, I was working in health and fitness industry, and then I worked in some technologies, and then I worked in some startups, and bounced around. But slowly over time, just by practice and different groups, whether they were professional or whether they had impact or not, I got to mess around with all this stuff, and you just learn how to do it, right? So just do it, break things, figure it out. I think, Kylie, you said similarly, like, your rise to your knowledge level, which is extreme, happened sort of just by doing it. Like, what was your degree in?
Communication.
Oh, communications. Still. So don't be afraid of it. It would also be my thing to say. Yeah, that's it for me. Do you have any questions?
I guess my big question is, how do we determine whether content is compelling enough?
Ooh, that is very subjective. I need some tea. Can you answer that?
Nice guy.
Are you talking specifically for social or like on your website?
I'm emphasizing social media, yes.
So, really, I think a great way to learn about what's compelling is to follow. You have to build your community base by following the others in your industry who are doing it right. As you start interacting with that community and seeing, like, oh wow, these guys are posting every single day. They have tons of followers, tons of likes. What is it that they're doing? It's kind of as simple as that, but it's also as complicated as you want to get. It's what is compelling. What do you like when you're looking on your feed? What's going to make you stop and say, oh yeah, that is really interesting or valuable? Or it should be something that I always say the most valuable social media content is one that takes it a step further than just somebody looking at it. If you can get your audience to engage in it somehow, if you can employ a call to action, if you can get somebody to be an active participant in your content, then you're really making a difference.
Yes.
Because once you have people actually interacting with what you're posting, that's so much more of an effect than if somebody just scrolls past. So I like to think of it as, what's the carrot? There's only so many characters that you can put before Facebook will cut it off. So you want to be hitting your points right there. What can you say in those first few sentences that's going to make somebody say, see more, and click and open it? How can you get people back to your website? How can you get people to click on that video or whatever it is? So putting it in the mindset of, once somebody is seeing your post, what's going to make that impact on them? Take it to that next level.
I would also add, well, let me ask, what's your industry?
I'm in the music industry.
What's your business?
Well, technically what I'm doing is, I used to be doing sort of pop music, but now I'm switching over to soundtrack work.
Okay. So what are you selling?
Well, technically at the moment I'm selling my services to game developers in particular.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I subscribe. Does anybody know who Simon Sinek is? Look him up. Watch his 30-minute TED Talk called I forget what it's called. Start with Why. It's called Start with Why. Ask yourself, no matter what your business is, no matter what you're selling, ask yourself three. Let me use Western Playhouse as an example. People know what we do. They know that we present plays that we create. They know how we do it. We bring producers and directors and actors and musicians together, and they get together for a few weeks and make a thing. But they don't care. People don't buy what you do. They don't buy how you do it. They buy why you do it. So compelling content to me is content that builds an emotional connection with a potential consumer. Start with why. Why is your music important to those game designers? You know, are you in the Final Fantasy realm? I listened to this podcast the other day about the death. Has anybody ever played Final Fantasy? I never did, but I know the game. I played Zelda as a kid, right? But they talk about the music when the princess in Final Fantasy 9, 11, something dies, and it blows people's minds that this character dies, and she stabs herself with a sword, and the people had this incredible emotional reaction to it, and it was because of the composer. And so the interview was with the composer. Why? Why is it important? You know, because my music will make people cry. Now I'm a game designer, and I want to. I want to buy your music because you're going to help me make people cry. So figure out your niche, figure out why you're doing it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Watch Simon Sinek, start with why. Everybody, mandatory homework.
Yeah.
So this past year, I was working for an art gallery down in Flynn Ave called Flynn Dog, and a lot of folks came to me telling me that I should use Instagram primarily rather than Facebook. And I'm just curious in what instances you would suggest that over Facebook.
So Instagram is the biggest difference I see between Instagram and Facebook is that you can reach a much broader exposure. Whereas Facebook is very pay to play, like we were saying, you're not going to necessarily reach people outside of your follower base. Instagram allows you to connect with a lot more by use of hashtags and following and building communities. So anybody in any kind of visual industry at all, whether it's fashion or art or design or food and beverage or travel, it's all about visual content. And so if you have something that is as compelling as an art gallery, it's so important to be focusing on, because that's really what you're selling is that visual experience. Again, I would say because Instagram is scalable in that way, it's effective in a way that Facebook is less so, unless you're putting money behind it. And it's all visual. You're speaking with the visuals versus Facebook, which integrates all different video, articles, photos, whatever. This is really where you're kind of showing the landscape of visual content. Additionally, a thing that I encourage people to always make use of is using Instagram stories. And then if you're familiar with highlight reels on Instagram, you can have basically collections of these stories that allow people to take a miniature journey into just one component. Maybe you have like a certain type of series that comes back every month or every quarter or whatever, and you want to just focus on that. And so somebody who's looking at your Instagram for the first time can see your highlight reels and say, oh yeah, you know what, I'm interested in just this, or whatever you want to call out, because you're really telling the story in a way that's very different than the experience of somebody who lands on your Facebook page, where I feel that Facebook content kind of is more temporary as well. Once the time passes, that content is sort of gone. I mean, people can scroll forever, but rarely are people going to spend that much time digging into Facebook. Versus Instagram, you capture them with that interesting visual, and they want to see everything else. You know, and then when you're continuously giving these beautiful pieces of content to people, everybody who's on Instagram is, you know, just scrolling their feed looking for pretty pictures. And if you're proving to them like this is valuable content that's going to continue to be delivered over time, people will subscribe.
Yeah.
So that's sort of my sense of it. It's a really interesting way to story that Facebook doesn't necessarily deliver.
Do you know, you're not at Flindog anymore?
No, as of a month ago.
Okay. Well, okay, so back then though, did you have any data on who your audience was?
I mean, basically I was redefining not just Flindog Gallery, but a whole new space in the basement. So it was very much my sole community and who they then branched out to. So it was primarily between 20 and 35-year-olds and family and that kind of thing. And sometimes we had patrons who were of the older, more artisan style community that would come to like the exhibitions and that kind of thing. But in terms of events, it definitely brought in the like mid-20s to mid-30s range.
And your original question was whether you use Facebook or Instagram?
Yeah, I think I was just curious because I primarily used Facebook and I had several people come to me saying it would be really cool if you switched over. So I was just curious the pros and cons of that.
I think it's a great example of just an exercise in like know your audience. If you don't know who your audience is, you don't know who you're talking to. And like, so yeah, it's the right decision to go to Instagram. Definitely.
Yeah, and additionally, think about all of the people who subscribe to like hashtag Burlington, Vermont, hashtag BTD. That's where you're going to be able to reach this community, again, without having to pay for it, which is huge. So going into those communities, looking at what people are following when it comes to hashtags is so valuable. It's a really powerful way to continue to broaden your reach, again, in a way that's free.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, so we have a budget on the very, very low end, like say $100 tops. Where's the best place for that money to go?
Is that pure marketing budget?
Yeah.
So is this
And we're already paying for it, so it doesn't include having to pay for the donate.
What's your theater company?
Of a Falcon Rebels Theater Cooperative.
and you guys have a website?
Yes, we do.
Which is
And
awesome.
we're paying for the domain, so and that's not included.
And not included, okay. This is a situation where, because it's a small budget, I would probably drive it into Facebook. The thing about Google Ads, which is great, is it's tons of data, it's tons of planting the seeds for growth. However, if you only have a small budget, you can make a lot more leeway with one-off, very specific campaigns rather than an ongoing slow burn campaign. So for example, if you have a lot of events or you're trying to highlight different things, every time you post content specific to that, you can boost it. So it doesn't have to be like, I'm gonna build this campaign that's gonna run for X number of days and infinitely. You can say, this event is coming up and a month beforehand, we're gonna boost a post every week for, $20. And after the first boosted post, you have data that you can feed directly into the next boosted post that you do. So you can even say, okay, well, I want to target different people. I want to make sure that it's people who didn't see my first one. Or you can say, I want to target the same people. I want to remind them of this event. So maybe they saw it the first time. You can also, again, you can use a lot of audience targeting tactics and say, anybody who's ever been to my page, I want to see this ad. Anybody who's ever been to my website, I want to see this ad. Which so again, I think that Facebook allows you to maneuver small budgets in a way that I think is a lot more valuable. Whereas Google Ads is something that you say, I have a monthly budget of so much, and I'm going to continuously run this campaign and optimize it over time. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Your $100 will go a long way on Facebook for what you're trying to do. Where are you guys performing?
Probably, we don't know yet.
How many nights?
Well, the next one will be at UVM, at
Okay.
the university.
Yeah.
We do like short series during the winter and spring, and then we do summer outdoor and different.
What's the total potential number of butts and seats? 400?
100 per performance.
Okay, yeah, so if you're looking to reach 300, with $100 in Facebook, you can reach tens of thousands.
Yes.
But very specifically, because that's your money.
Yeah.
Yeah, play with audience targeting with just like $10 first, you know, and see how it works. And then as you move closer and closer to your event, do little tweaks, do some A/B tests. Again, you're still gonna reach the people. It's basically, Facebook tells you how many people you're gonna reach right off the bat before you even spend the money. It says, okay, because you're saying, okay, I want people who are just in Vermont, people who are just in this age bracket, people who are interested in these types of things, and those are the only people I want to see this ad, and it'll only serve to them. But it'll say, okay, based on what you gave us, this is how many people you're going to reach with that amount of budget you're dedicating. So it tells you up front exactly how many people are in those crosshairs when you build the campaign.
Do you have a Facebook pixel?
Pixel, sorry.
It's something that you can implement on the back end of your website, which will allow, it's actually, you do it in Facebook My Business first, but you're basically allowing Facebook and your website to have a seamless integration so you can see exactly that user experience journey
There
from,
we go.
look up Facebook Pixel, it's really easy to set up, and it integrates with any platform or website.
Kind of off of her question, I'm just wondering if I don't know anything about Google Ads, I don't know anything about paying for ads on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and we're talking about experimenting to get to know your audience and to see your results. Could you give an example of, assuming I have my website and then maybe at least I've hooked in Google Analytics, if I have like $100 to spend, how can I spend that $100 to experiment on these different platforms to see what's working and what's not?
So again, $100, I wouldn't recommend driving into Google Ads. It's a little bit more of an expensive platform and it requires a longer time to pick up traction. Whereas Facebook is better for one-off campaigns that are shorter term. Of course you can build ongoing campaigns in Facebook as well, but when it comes to Google Ads, that's very much, you're planting a seed for long-term growth, or it requires a little bit more of a budget to really make traction. Facebook, you're reaching people directly on the platform itself. And the analytics that come with it are also illuminating as well. Every time you finish your campaign, you can see the breakdown of everybody who's reached and how many people actually click to your website. And then you can capture that audience and say, I want to save that audience, create a lookalike audience. My next round is going to advertise to similar people, but a new slew of people who have the same interests or demographics, browsing patterns, so on. Is that sort of answering your question, though?
Yeah.
Okay.
You've had your hand up since the beginning. You were the first.
Sorry. I was wondering about radio. Am I like the only one that listens? I mean, I like drive and I listen to the radio, and I'm wondering about advertising on the radio.
I buy radio advertising through NPR underwrite.
Local business,
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Like local radio stations.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Because it wasn't in this, I don't think.
It's super hard to like determine your ROI on that. It's like you don't really know. Like the radio station will tell you, well, during from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. you're gonna, our listenership is 222,000 people, blah, blah, but like how many people are you actually reaching? You don't know. So like to me that would be if you have budget, this is just for me, this would be my opinion. If you have budget to do it. But if you're tight on budget, I would cut radio. That's just me.
Is it
Do you
expensive?
guys do that at all? Do you guys do any radio buys?
It's kind of rare. It's something that I think can be very effective in a very local business component. And again, if you know that your listenership or your audience rather is part of the listenership of the radio station that you're targeting, I think it has a lot to do with your faith in that knowledge of your audience. If you know that those people are listening to whatever local radio station, I mean, I say go for it. But again, Andy is not wrong in saying it's very hard to measure the efficacy compared to a lot of other methods. It's not to say it doesn't work.
And there are some people doing it well.
Yeah.
Even if it's like not even great content, but I just hear it over and over, like The Edge and the Guys Farming Yard. They both have like a high rating presence. Anyway, yeah.
So, akin to lookalikes, can you do this in Facebook ads? Say you're a photographer, and I don't want to go to my email people and build a lookalike. I want to find the people. Suppose my work is often compared to the work of Ansel Adams. So I want to find people who like Ansel Adams, go to art shows, buy photography for a lot of money. Can I put that packet together in Facebook and hit them?
Yes.
Cool.
It has a lot. The more you know about that audience, and the more you say, okay, I only want to reach people who have above 150K a year, you can absolutely do that. Facebook does know quite a bit about its users. I will say targeting in Google might be even more advanced in that way, because Google allows you to create these very robust, what's called affinity audiences. And you can say, you know what, I want everybody who goes to this website to be in my crosshairs, to say,
Really?
yeah.
Holy
You
shit.
can, you can, and obviously, I mean, you're not, unless you have a massive budget, you're not going to reach every single person who goes to the website. But if that's something that's important to you, you can say, I'm targeting visitors of this website, people who frequent this particular website. You can make it more broad than that and just say, fine art websites in general. But again, if you want to make it something that's literally that specific, you have that audience insight. That's why Google is so powerful, because Google literally knows everything. It is insane how much Google knows about every person in the world.
And you can throw your $10 a week at that, right? Doesn't have to be a mega budget.
You can, yes. It's a little bit harder again with Google because of the way that the goals are set up. So you can decide, all right, I'm going to pay for conversions, which means you are only paying when somebody clicks to your website or whatever that conversion is that you're looking for. It's more expensive to do it that way, but you know that your money is going towards something that you want. Versus if you're like, I want to pay for impressions, then Google will charge you whenever somebody sees your ad. I don't usually recommend impression-based ads unless you're doing some kind of an awareness campaign where there's multiple touch points and you're reminding people over and over again about something. If you're really looking to drive a specific action, conversion-based bidding in Google
Like
is very effective.
sign your email list.
Exactly.
That conversion.
Mm-hmm.
Holy crap. So I could pick a lookalike artist, or if I'm a musician, sound-alike musician, and pay only for conversions for those who sign my mailing list, who also go to John Prine's website.
Essentially,
Bingo.
absolutely. So yes, the more you have on the front
I mean,
end
you
of
say
your-
that, but it's yeah.
Well, so basically, there's a couple things that you're thinking of in that sense. So first, you got your audience targeting. What does that audience look like? And then your conversion. So when you're targeting this audience, there's a couple different ways you could do it. You could say, I want people who have visited this website, or you can say, I want it to show up on this website. You could do either. It's called placements. When you say, somebody who's already on this website is going to see my display ad, that's called a placement. So it refers to a banner ad that shows up specific to that website versus just targeting that person, but then your display ad could show up anywhere in that span of time. So it's kind of like, oh, they visited the website at one point, and then the next day they see it show up on BuzzFeed or whatever. It doesn't matter. You can say, I only want to show my display ads on this website.
Is that your conversion?
No, so that's basically telling Google where to show your display ads. You can let Google decide, and if you do that, it'll be, you know, someone's on an app or a game and your display ad's right there. You can tell Google, no, I want to only show up on desktop so people can see my ad. I want it to only show up when it's this type of web page. You can be very specific with where and how your ads are showing up in Google for that person.
Can your ad simply be the homepage of your website?
What do you mean?
Well, you're using this Google advertising in order to reach people who are visiting John Prine's website, and then you send them something, right? Or Google.
So they click on your ad
Yeah.
and land wherever you want them to land.
Okay, so you got to build an ad as part of this campaign.
You're talking about a
Exactly.
visual asset.
Yeah. Okay. So, but that can't just be simply a link to the page one of your website.
Well, so it will be an image,
Yeah.
and it's actually really easy to just take an image that you have, and Google will size it properly, and you can
Okay.
input whatever text you want to accompany that image. That will show up as a banner, and then when somebody clicks on that banner, it'll lead to whatever URL you decided.
All on the Google ad building pages.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine. Thanks. Cool. I'm there.
Yeah, and see again, like that, it's something that I could talk about forever. You know, it's so. Well, I think it would be a valuable workshop to
Oh,
go into.
yeah.
There's so much that you can
yeah.
uncover. It's so robust, the level of detail that you can get into, whether you want your how you're targeting your audience versus how your ad is going to appear versus what devices do you want it to appear on. You can tell Google, I don't want it to ever show up on mobile, or I don't want it to ever show up on desktop because I know my people aren't even there. You know, it's something where the more you know about your audience and that qualified traffic, the better your ads are going to perform.
But is it also, let's say you don't have an audience yet, 'cause you're new. Is it also then in that case about identifying who you want your audience to be?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
The ideal audience is this.
Mhm.
Let's go find it.
Yeah.
That's so essential after the killing of the gatekeepers. In basically everything, art, music,
Mhm.
yeah.
Right.
This lady's got a
Yes.
question for you.
Is there any information about how many people actually see the ads on Facebook, Google? It's like, I've never seen them because my mind is not looking at them. My mind is looking at what I'm doing there. So there could be 1,000 ads on there, but I'm never gonna see them or ever look at them. So.
Excellent point. So that is where you're deciding your what they call a bidding strategy. You can essentially say, I'm bidding on number of impressions, which means your ad showed up great. Or you can say, I only want to pay when somebody clicks on my ad or expands my ad or visits my website because of my ad. So again, it costs a little bit more because basically Google will show your ad a lot more. And then you are only paying for those conversions. So I would recommend that because, again, you're right. How many times do you see ads that you completely ignore? And it's hard to tell just from seeing an ad wherever you are whether they're paying for your impressions or they're paying for your clicks. You can't tell that. But as an advertiser, you can make the decision, I don't want to pay for impressions because I'm looking for more than that. You know, I want people to actually take the step and convert. So it allows you to do that. And again, there are reasons why somebody might do an impression-based campaign, but it usually has to do more with awareness or brand reputation, where it's not necessary for the person to take that next step as much. But for what you're saying, I would recommend it's again it's called cost per click or cost per conversion, where you're paying for the people to actually interact with your ad, and it only charges you when that happens. Yeah. I don't know who was next. Sorry.
You want to do?
Yeah.
So you talked about how a lot of us are probably working on smaller budgets, so Facebook makes a lot of sense. If you're considering, if you've got a slightly bigger budget or you want to start planning for the future for doing something with Google Ads, assuming you don't have a highly competitive search terms that you're looking for, what would be just a kind of a ballpark estimate budget where you think that that would start being a good possibility to consider?
So you're talking about paid search campaigns?
Yeah.
So it really depends. Like we work with some software companies where their search terms are literally $50 a click, which is insane to me. But the market is so niche that, and the price of their product is so high that it's worth it to them to spend, you know, $5,000 for one conversion, which would end up being like, you know, $250,000. What is your? I'm so sorry. What is your industry?
I'm doing a couple of, but I have a performance company where we do musicals and operas.
Okay.
And it's very small.
So in that mindset, you would need to be thinking about what is my audience searching when they're looking for what I'm giving them. So you know that people are searching for performance-based, whatever it is. Think about what those search terms look like. There's a lot of tools that you can use for keyword research that will let you know how many people are searching those terms per month, where they are. You know, you can focus it just on Vermont or whatever. And then you can see how much it costs to bid on those search terms. For high value, I would say only focus on high value search terms, but you can also think kind of tactically about it and say, maybe this search term is less competitive, but it's very specific to my particular situation, and capture that part of the audience that maybe your competitors aren't targeting.
Kylie, can you talk a little bit about sort of the regionality of that? So when we go into a bidding situation in AdWords, are we, is he like his search terms are not going to be as expensive because if his geo target is here, right?
Correct.
As opposed to if you're in New York City.
Right.
So like,
Yes.
relative to where you live, you can do some good things for not a lot of money.
Search is geolocated.
Yeah.
You're not going to be competing with some big theater in New York City.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So like if you were just to do a general Google search for other companies that do what you do, see if anybody has an ad. Probably not. So do it, and you're gonna be able to get. It's gonna be an affordable campaign, is my guess.
Yeah. Search Console is helpful. Of course, that's assuming that you already have a website and you can take a look at how people are getting there, what they're searching. There's a lot of tools that I use. Most of them are paid, but it's not that expensive if you're investing in the research component. Again, another option always is to reach out to an agency and even just ask for like a consultation and say, you know, how much would it cost just to work with you guys to get a little bit of research behind this? A lot of agencies would do that. It's just about finding the right person, or a consultant could do that. But yeah, it sounds like you would probably already have an idea of what search terms would be valuable. And I would just say build the campaign, start seeing how it works out, spend a little money. Any traffic you gain to your website becomes an asset for you, because then you can use that audience and continue to reach more people who should be in that range.
Has anybody tried to build a Google AdWords campaign in here? Okay. So has anybody seen the dashboard for what it looks like? A couple of people. Is it intimidating? Is the idea of doing it intimidating to people who haven't done it? Yeah. You're not going to break it.
It is complex, but yeah.
Yeah. But there is also a sort of an entry-level portal that will let you just basically get your ad out there without, you don't have to like bake any of the granular stuff that Kylie's talking about. Like if you want to do a Google ad and you don't have any real competitors in the space, although now you're all competitors, then your ad will definitely drive traffic to your website.
And Google's good about like having a user-friendly interface. I think again, it is very complex when you know how many things you can change, but even just starting at the campaign process, Google will say, all right, well, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to increase visits to your website? Are you trying to sell tickets? They'll ask you that up front, so you're building a goal-based campaign from the beginning. And just follow your best instincts. Also, again, there's tons of information that Google puts out there to help kind of demystify some of those decisions when you're like, I don't know what bidding strategy means. There's 1,000 articles on what makes a good bidding strategy, but ultimately it boils down to all the same thing. It's just, what are you trying to accomplish? You know? Yes, you had your hand up for a while.
Sorry. You asked if anybody tried to build Google Ads campaign, and I remembered, oh yes, I did, but it wouldn't let me because I am a burlesque performer and I have a website with a lot of photos, with basically my portfolio, which is 98% of my content is photos and videos, and Google Ads says you don't have enough text, so we have no idea what your website is about. We can't run ads.
Fascinating.
I know, right? So even I just now remember that. Oh, after that I even started having a blog on it, and I never tried again. So I was wondering if you have some kind of advice for that.
That's so interesting because I've never seen that problem, but it makes sense. I think having a blog is an excellent way to start. Any information you can put on the main landing page, even just a paragraph of text, having a contact us page or something, you know, that just says a little bit more information about it. Because that all comes down to SEO, which interestingly actually fits very well into paid advertising because it sort of follows the same rules. So yes, if Google's saying we have no idea if your site is even legitimate because we can't read anything about it.
Yeah.
But this is also, what platform are you using for your website?
So I used Website Builder years ago, and I only chose that one because my computer was so old, so obsolete that was the only platform that my computer could still run on.
Interesting. Okay.
So, but it seems fine.
I'm not familiar with that CMS content management system. I would take a look at, when you're building a website, there are spaces for you to add text in the back end where it won't show up to a user, but it will show up to search engines. It's called metadata. And essentially, you want search engines and Google bots to be able to understand what's on your website no matter what. So this is where you are telling those robots what your content is. So my assumption would be, because most platforms will have space to add descriptions and keywords and tags, alt text to images, which will allow Google and any other robots to understand your content.
Interesting. Is that similar to when you add hashtags to your YouTube video that are not publicly viewed?
So, not really, because hashtags are for humans, essentially, whereas this information is really for computers. But the concept, yes, is somewhat similar. But really what it is it's allowing Google and other search engines to be able to understand your content. So what I would do is perform a little Google search on that website platform that you have and how to add SEO information. So how to basically label your website. But again, what you said also about just adding text, absolutely. That again, I haven't experienced this before, but that should solve that problem. And yeah, just do a little bit of research on how to add that extra layer of information.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah.
I just have a quick question. Just to get to the platform for basically starting all of this with like creating a Google ad campaign, if you just type
Marketing 360, all of the tools are there.
Okay.
If you have a Gmail account, you already have access to all of this.
Okay.
So all you need is a Google Gmail account, and then start with analytics. Start with, it used to be called AdWords, it's now just called Google Ads. You can find the whole suite there if you search for it. Again, Google Marketing 360 will show you all of their tools. There's a lot too. I wouldn't say you necessarily have to do everything, or should you, but at least those top ones. And Google Search Console is another product that will, it basically allows you to get a closer look at how people are searching your keywords, how people are finding your website, what they're searching. And it integrates all seamlessly with one another, which is why I love the Google Suite, because every one of its products will speak to each other. And once you get into one of them, it's very similar in all of the other products too, so you get used to the dashboards and how it works. You kind of already have a little bit of a sense of how it works.
You can also, everybody can also just demystify it by doing the Google Academy for Ads.
Yep.
And there's a billion courses that you can take. Some
And
of them
they're
take, they're all free. Some of them take 20 minutes, some of them take an hour, depending. But like, go through the portals that you're most interested in, and you're gonna get a foundational base knowledge that's gonna springboard you into like demystifying and taking some of the fear out of like trying to build an ad.
Right.
Yeah.
We heard from a couple folks about the $100 budget question, and you mentioned that it may not be the best to spend at Google Ads. I did notice that I've been signed up for Google Analytics for a while for my website, and they have consistently sent me we'll match you up to $150 for your first ad, and they even send an 800 number to like, we'll help you. Clearly, you are reticent, so please call us. So anyway, the question is, how close is $100 to? So in other words, if someone does come up with got $100, they can match it to 200. Is that even worth it?
Is it worth it?
Cool.
What's your goal?
Well, no, I think we had several different people had different goals. So I was just wondering in general,
Is it worth it?
You generally said that 100 is not enough. How close was the question?
I mean,
What's your minimum spend before you're really being effective with Google Ads?
my philosophy with Google Ads is this is the same with organic search. It's the same across the board with Google, where basically the longer you're running something, the better it's going to get. So the reason I say it's not as effective is unless you're consistently spending money over time and optimizing that, the first month of spending, you're not going to see a whole lot. It's something that you need to invest. That said, it's not like you're going to get nothing.
Okay, so now let me answer that question that you asked, which is what is the goal? So in my case, the goal would be, I'm going to pick one, driving people to what their favorite streaming service to listen to my music.
Interesting. So you want people on whichever streaming service
Whatever
they use.
they normally use anyway.
Well, that's a really specific goal that I would almost find value in actually advertising on those streaming services. Like, I want my ad to be on Spotify, which you can do, because that's such a specific. Again, though, I mean,
You're also like entering a huge market where your search terms are gonna be, right?
True.
So like $100 is not gonna get you far. $100 might get you far. So it's all relative to what your goal is, and like that's a long-term play, right?
Right.
Really long-term.
And that's what I was trying to get at too. Is it really is? It's a slow burn. Unfortunately, is the problem. But again, it's
cool service.
It's
cool
powerful and it has so much potential. But yeah, if you've only got $100 and you're trying to turn something around in that time with that money, I would again recommend going with Facebook or something similar. But that's a tough one. I mean, how do you get somebody who's using Spotify or whatever to search you and find you and start streaming your music? Have you looked into specific to these platforms what they offer, like outside of Google? Because you can probably go straight
Well,
to
you
the
know,
source.
I mean, for instance, I'm all signed up with Spotify for artists, and so, you know, they can customize what's there. Of course, any one of them, they all want to be, you know, your everything, so.
Right.
Looking for that credit card and, you know, hey, sign up for a year.
And then
you
you're
know,
paying
it's-
all of these.
What are they
different
asking
platforms.
for?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Actually, Spotify, I haven't really looked into it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much not interested in their pro program. I get digital distribution through the same place I get my website and all that, so it's not, you know, and they actually, you know, they do the same job as every other digital distributor for music, which is, you know, not much. They just get it there. And so, yeah, there's the obvious thing, the more obvious thing is Facebook ads, obviously, for any of this. I'm just wondering, I was just curious about the level of spending on Google ads.
I mean, if you want to say, yeah, okay, Google, I'll take you up on that.
Yeah.
I would say go for it. Give their support line a call. It's always fun.
They'll call you up.
Yeah. But yeah, it's all about, you know, building that foundation. And if you even are driving, I assume you have a website as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, even if you're driving people to your website, you can then continue to target those people and people like them. So my philosophy, again, is if you can get the right people to your website, that alone is a win. And that's an asset that you can continue using later. So it's not like, even if you didn't make any conversions, your money's not totally gone. You managed to get some people to your website, and now you have more to go on. You have at least that as a base. So that's my philosophy on it.
I work for Christmas soon.
Yeah.
This is changing the tone a little bit away from Google, so I hope that's okay. But one of the digital marketing strategies of Vermont Dance Alliance is to use MailChimp with a weekly e-newsletter. And for whatever reason, it goes into the promotions folder of Google. So I don't know with other email addresses how it maybe it's spam.
So there is a way to, I'm trying to remember what it's actually called, but there's a way to, instead of the sender's address to appear as like a random jumble from MailChimp, you can get your domain to show up, which makes it a lot less likely it's going to end up in a promotions folder. That's thing one. So it's a domain verification that you would do through MailChimp that basically, instead of having this kind of like anonymous sender, which Gmail sees as, oh, that's a promotion, and it'll see it actually as something from your domain, which has more value. So there's that, which will help. There's also, if you can encourage your audience to add you basically to their address book, or because you can actually tell people, if you just basically add me to your address book and say, yes, this is a person that I am interested in hearing from, that will stop that from happening as well. And that's something through.
Do you see that even with people who opt in?
Yeah, occasionally. And that is a MailChimp thing for sure, and you're totally right. And that's most email marketing applications will do that. Again, the domain verification process, if just do a quick search on it, and you should be able to see where in MailChimp to do that. And it's basically, you just have to prove to MailChimp that your domain is legitimate, which usually is as simple as saying, I have a Google Analytics account and there's a tracking code on it, and it'll just see that and say, okay, yes, or you're saying, I have a GoDaddy account and here's my domain verification, whatever it is. There's a couple different methods of doing it, but it's basically an extra step to make sure that you're not just spamming people who, you're from a legitimate business domain, and this is not I know I basically never look in that folder, you know? But again, if you can encourage people to also take that extra step and basically tell Gmail or whatever inbox they're using to recognize you, that will help too. Yeah, that's a good question.
By tab, promotions is the lowest, has the lowest read rate of any of the other Gmail inbox tabs. 19.2%. Says this website.
You might look out on mobile because I'm subscribed to you. So I on mobile I'll see it because it'll just all flow into the same inbox, but like it's on browser or on desktop, it will go with that.
I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions.
Yeah.
You haven't mentioned Twitter at all.
So, Twitter is really similar to how Instagram allows you to reach people who don't necessarily have to be your follower already. You can use hashtags to gain more exposure. But where Instagram is using visuals to communicate, Twitter is using either links or text to communicate. And Twitter is a situation where you need to get your point across in a very short string of text. It needs to be compelling enough that somebody is going to either retweet or click on your link. But if you're somebody who is posting many updates or following something, or anything that's industry news based, Twitter is very good at that. But it's similar to what I said about Facebook, it even more so, I think, it's very temporary. It's a temporary touch point that after a certain amount of time, it's like pretty much gone, unless somebody is going to your Twitter and looking at your activity. So it's something that I think requires a lot of effort and can work in the right circumstances. However, it faces a lot of challenges that you don't see with Instagram and Facebook. It's very kind of a temporary touch point that needs to be consistently nurtured and you're consistently giving. But if you have an article that you want to share, or if you have something on your website that you want to pull someone into, reach out to Twitter, to the Twitterverse, and use the right hashtags and use that to try to get website traffic. So that's sort of where it is. If you can get your point across and you can pull that call to action into people and put that carrot out there, it can be effective in getting people to your website. If that makes sense.
Thank you. So to end up, we've got a question for you. Since the Smart Artist series, to get the word out about this series, we posted on Facebook, we were on the radio, we hung up posters, we put up postcards. So raise your hand if you found out about this through an email. Raise your hand if you found out about it from Facebook. Raise your hand if you heard about it on the radio. Raise your hand if you came and heard about it from a poster or a postcard. So, that tells you some things.
Wow.
So thank you. One last thing. We are here tonight, here because of Burlington City Arts. They donated the space to us for this. So thank you so much to Burlington City Arts, to Hark, who also sponsored this, to Community Capital of Vermont, to the 105.9 The Radiator, to Main Street Landing Performing Arts Center, who helped us get the word out. So we couldn't do this without their help. So thank you all for coming, and we hope to do more of these. So thank you so much. Thank you.